So, Scott, thank you so much for being here today. Introduce yourself to everybody.
My name is Scott Novis. I am the founder of Game Truck, the national birthday party company. We do video game birthday parties. I have a couple engineering degrees, and I made games for a very long time. My gameology is 15 published titles for Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. So I know a little bit about kids and video games, and that's why I'm here.
I don't know, in your previous work, can you talk about some of the games that you've done? Or is that like, I had to leave that job behind, I can't talk about it anymore?
No, it was an incredible experience. The biggest game that I worked on, I'm dating myself now, was ATV Off-Road Fury. It was an early title on a PlayStation 2. One of the first truly 3D games. I ran the game studio that made the games, and we went on to the biggest, most popular game that was widely known was Cars Day and Date with the movie, and we got to work with Pixar in making that video game, and that was an incredible experience. Um, and really, most of the games we did were racing games. That we did some Pro BMX and a couple other things, but it was really, it was a fun run. But as they say, it was my turn to get off the executive merry-go-round, and I started my own company,
Very
and
cool.
it was cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal to start your own company and go out on your own and do that sort of stuff. That takes a lot of courage, man.
Or stubbornness. I really didn't want to interview for a job. I just was like, you got to be kidding me. This is so dumb. But I'll tell you something else that was actually part of what drove me. And maybe as a dad, you can relate to this. Here I am telling my kids, believe in yourself. You can be who you want to be. And I looked at myself in the mirror going, I'm full of it. Am I doing that? Am I believing in myself? Am I doing what I believe in? I had this incredible idea for mobile video game theater. And look, in 2005, Game Truck, if you Googled that, you got like Monster Truck Madness, you got toy trucks, you got trucks to play games with. There was nothing like what I did. And so when I created the first one, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Later people are like, oh, it's obvious that it's Game Truck. I'm like, man, only in retrospect is it obvious. It wasn't forward looking at the time. Nobody saw it. And that launched the whole industry. Everybody calls it that. My company name is actually Game Truck. We have gametruck.com. So for me, it was really about setting an example for my boys and saying, all right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to have at it. And man, I got really lucky. It worked.
That's cool. So, kind of tell people what Game Truck is. I'm familiar with it. Of course, I looked you up before, we had our conversation
Oh,
here.
right.
But
Yeah.
tell people what Game Truck is.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So what we do is we built this custom trailer. We converted, basically have a custom built car hauler, but it's adapted into a living room. So we pull a living room to your house on wheels, loaded with video games. So one wall is all flat screen TVs, and then we've got everything in there you want to play. So there's PlayStation, there's Xbox, there's Nintendo, and enough controllers and copies of games for 12 to 20 kids to play at the same time. And that is an awesome party. It's one of those things. I'm an enormous fan of playing together. Our mission is to create feelings of belonging through play. And I am still convinced that video games can be one of the best, most inclusive ways to play together. I just realized that today, parents, it's easy to get confused about what your choices and options are, and it isn't entirely clear what can lead to healthy gaming, which is inclusive, and what can actually create some harm and can get some kids stuck and sidelined. And that's one of the reasons I was really looking forward to talking with you, to help parents make better choices about the awesome games they're going to remember for the rest of their lives versus the ones that might define the rest of their lives and not in a good way.
Right. Yeah. You've been in gaming for a long time and, kind of
I
talk
got
to me
gray hair,
about,
yeah.
yeah. Hey man, me too. Me too. So like, I want to ask you how gaming has changed over the years. And obviously you can talk about, physics and 3D and all that sort of stuff and the platforms,
Oh,
but socially speaking, how has gaming changed over the years?
it's a cliche to say it's radically different. It started out with the earliest days of like Pong and Atari of like, we have a little computer chip that we can draw graphics on the screen. We're going to make games out of it. We're going to do fun stuff. And the progression of adding, more bits of processing from 8-bit to 16-bit to 32, 64, 128. The graphics got better, and then we could render in 3D. So the worlds became more immersive. Then they said, wow, we could actually add realistic physics. And so that's where games like ATV Off-Road Fury came into the heyday of you could begin to simulate things in fun and interesting ways. What the significant turning point of where several things converged was cloud computing. So now you have this idea that we can scale servers infinitely. And up till that point, servers were largely run by fans. You set up a server and then you did local area network play. It was PC gaming. Consoles didn't really have that concept. But as the cloud became more prevalent, the game publishers started hosting their own servers. And so that changed the dynamic from a small group of people you actually knew and you had community control over who could participate in your server. Suddenly it became managed by this large entity, which is trying to produce entertainment while minimizing liability and risk. And I'll come back to that in a second. The other thing that happened was the iPhone. As 2007 happened, had we put 24/7 internet connection in people's pockets. And by 2015, 8 years later, phones were cheap enough and ubiquitous enough that parents started giving them to their kids. And so the tablets, the phones, always on, always connected, internet gaming changed. The third pillar of this thing was the explosion in valuation of companies like Facebook. We created an economy where we value companies on how much attention I say they can steal, how much they can hold, how much they can gather, how much they can keep. They are not valued on the experience they deliver to the user because the user's not paying for their experience. Somebody else is paying to have the user's attention. And as we have learned, and Jonathan Haidt wrote last year on the anxious generation, this is not healthy for kids.
You bring up a really good point. When I was growing up, we had the Atari 2600, we had the original NES, and then we got all the way up to like the PlayStation 2. And that's where I started to see like the connectivity thing. So you went from having this console that you played side by side with somebody to now there's a game in your pocket and you have complete strangers, messaging you or potentially talking with you. That's a pretty big change in not only gameplay, but also parenting.
Oh, it is completely different. And one of the things, if I can nerd out for a second, there's some information I think your dads really need to know.
Sure.
Is this stuff these are not the games we played. These are not the games we grew up on. These are not the systems. And they're having a radically different impact on our kids. And let me explain why and why they're engineered differently. Well, first of all, rule one, like your takeaway number one, if you take away nothing else from this thing, be the customer of the game developer, pay for your games, right? That's what we did. We went and bought our games, right? The developer was trying to entertain you. They wanted you to have a great experience. When we designed games in the studio, we were trying to create games that were compelling, entertaining. Man, we were charging $50 to $60, man. That's a big ask. We had to deliver hours of entertainment that you found satisfying, rewarding, and engaging. Great stuff. That's a different algorithm than one that is designed to trap your attention. And what happens with kids is humans are unique for a couple of reasons. Bunch, actually, but let me give you some specific ones. We're the only animal, our brain quadruples in size after birth. Think about that for a second. Whales and elephants might have bigger brains at birth, but they don't get bigger. Ours, 4-fold increase. And at 5 years old, a human child has more neural connections than an adult. They are literally a walking bundle of potential. They're untuned, which is why they're awkward and bumpy and uncoordinated, but man, they're ready to go. Then we do something else. Every other mammal goes from birth to reproduction as fast as possible. Our neighbor's dog had our puppy at 3 years old. Cats can reproduce at 1. Humans pause for 7 years. Why 7 years? Why do we wait 7 years before we go through puberty? What's up with that? That window is when we wire our brain. That's when our brain learns its culture. There's this cool study they did with Japanese businessmen and their families that moved over to the US. And what they learned was that if you landed before 9 years old and stayed through about 13 or 14, those kids felt American. They just didn't speak English fluently and natively. They understood the food, they understood the comedy, they understood the color palettes. Like they felt culturally American. But if you pull kids before that, they lose it. And if you drop them after that, they never get it. So there's something really powerful that happens that we get wired up during that era. Online connected video games are using what's called the hook algorithm. They're not trying to entertain you. They're trying to hold your attention as long as possible. And that is interfering with the neural development of your kids. The executive function that protects you from distraction doesn't develop till high school. So the same thing that makes it hard for you to put your phone down makes it impossible for your kid to. They don't have the protection. They don't have the prefrontal cortex you do. So I get throw a bunch of brain words at you. The point is, really sophisticated software that's designed to trap you as an adult imprisons your kid's attention. That's the big change. They not only change the platform, they not only change the technology, they change the way they implement the games to produce a different effect. They're not trying to entertain you. They use a variable racial reward to trap your brain's attention to stay on task as long as possible until it becomes, this is crazy. It becomes addictive.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
it's
nuts.
funny to see, right? Because and you made such a great point, because these are not the games that we grew up with. Because like how my parents parented me when I was on the Sega Genesis is going to be completely different from how kids today or parents are parenting today when their kid is playing, I don't know, Candy Crush on the iPhone, because it's completely different. And I love the clarification that you made. Whereas when you were making games, it was supposed to be the value for the player. And now it is very much about, oh, we need to keep their attention longer because we'll get more from it. And also, if you want to keep playing this game, you have to pay more and more and more money into it. And it's made to draw you in instead of entertaining you. And like, as you said, man, that's got to be awful for a developing brain.
Well, think about it, right? Like we do age verification in the real world all the time, right? This is a problem we have solved 100 years ago. A 9-year-old can't walk into a bar or a dispensary or somewhere else, right? They can't just self-validate going, are you old enough to drink? Yeah, I am. Okay, here's a drink, kid. But online, you're telling me the most valuable advanced technology companies in the world can't solve this problem? They don't want to.
Right.
Like across the board, all like for years, we're working on preventing no, they're not. The Facebook papers prove that. They don't want to break that because they report, you hear it in Wall Street, eyeballs, eyeballs, eyeballs. Those eyeballs are attached to brains. And a big chunk that are delivering huge usage hours are developing brains. They're unprotected. These companies have raw, unfiltered access to your child's developing brain. That, I think, is the number one message. Like, you really want to think about that. I feel bad for parents. You think you're giving your kid a toy. Who doesn't want their kid to be happy?
Right.
This looks fun. It's meant to look fun, but it's not a toy. It's a little siphon to suck the attention out of their head and make somebody else money. That part of the game industry, I'm not a fan of.
Right. And I completely agree with you there. Like it's just so different. And so,
It's
okay.
all different.
So
but
how
you and me
then?
playing with our friends, and now it's about
Right.
What is it really about?
Yeah. And again, there's still, you can still let your kids play games online and talk with their real friends and that sort of stuff. That can still exist. We can talk about that later. But how do we manage these new games that are supposed to steal our kids' attention instead of entertaining them?
So I break this by age groups. Young kids. If you've got young kids, 2 rules. Pay for the game. You have to be able to play it offline. If that game cannot be played offline, you got to ask yourself why. Why does it need an always-on internet connection? Chances are it's because the company that, and I might sweep some good companies up in this, and if I do, I apologize, but the vast majority of companies that demand an always-on internet connection are trying to monitor your usage statistics so that they can monetize your attention. And so from that point of view, I always recommend to parents, migrate towards games you can purchase. that you can play with the system off the internet. And, and I got a bunch of recommendations we can go in that space. But if you just use those two, so really popular games fall out. People are like, well, what about? I'm like, do you have to be online? Yes. Is it free? Yes. Don't play it. Play something different.
Right.
There's better options out there for your child at that age to play games. And yes, the other rule of thumb is people talk about game time is video game time should never exceed social time. So it's really about social emotional development. That social network, we need to observe our culture is how much time is your kid spending socializing versus playing by themselves. And that's the balance statistic you want to keep. And it's hard today. We used to be able, I don't know about you, I got kicked out of the house and like, don't come back, the streetlights come on. Like, okay. And today you go out and everybody's on their phones. Like the kids go to the playground and everybody's on their phones. And it's like, I'm really happy at the number of schools that are going phone free. Like that, I just can't support that enough. Like get it out of their hands, at least create one space where the kids are not slave to a device and their attention is not trapped by glass, and spend social time there. And so when we set our kids playing time, we were like, hey, if they're in the room together, playing together, how about it? You play all afternoon because they're socialized and they're playing together. It's fun. Less time, but I'm okay as they're playing online with friends we know they can physically hang out with. We didn't let them play with strangers. You had to play with people you knew, at least before 16, right? Above 16, it's still a little in that range. But when they were like that middle school, elementary school, like Minecraft can let you set private servers. So you can set only people you know are allowed into it. That kind of play. Yeah, we're good. But playing by yourself, we kept that pretty short. That might be an hour. It's like, that's entertainment, but never longer than a movie. Like, you feel after you binge watch a bunch of shows, you're like, I feel terrible. Gaming does the same thing. It'll wear you out. Keep it to, a television show or movie length. That is totally reasonable.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. What are some of the games that you would recommend for kids now that do meet the criteria that you're talking about? Give me some specific titles.
Okay. So I'm a big fan of Minecraft. Like I said, I think that's one you can absolutely play offline. Without an always on internet connection, you can buy the game. I think Microsoft has got a pretty darn good reputation for most things, and I respect the company and what they do. And for the most part, I do respect Sony and Nintendo. I love those guys. I think they've got a really good model. We just have seen some Roblox bad actors.
We'll talk about them later.
Yeah, we'll get to them. So I'm a fan of, usually if the kids are younger, I do recommend a Nintendo Switch because they'll grow with it. It's portable. And there's great games on there, like anything Mario, right? Mario Galaxy. I'm a big fan of Mario Kart because it's fun for parents to play with their kids. There's some niche games that I think are fun family games like Snipper Clips, where it's puzzle solving. I'm a big into cooperative gaming. So Overcooked is available on everything. Gang Beasts is another fun game, but sports games, right? You get into Madden, you get into NBA 2K, you get into FIFA. Those are games that are, they give you that relationship and understanding, and they translate into larger communities. I think those are great games for kids to get into playing. And again, they don't have to play online. They don't have to compete online. You can keep that stuff off and still have an amazing game experience. I do think the sports games do tend older now. They're pretty darn technical. So they tend to be late elementary, middle school. If you can't read, it's really hard to play those games.
Yeah, man, I would agree. Cause like I've come a long way because I remember like Madden 94, my dad and I would sit down and we would play that together on the Genesis. And that was a lot of fun. And my son and I just sat down over the weekend and we played, I think it was Madden 25 because that's what he has. And it was like, this is just so much more complicated as to what we're doing,
Yes, I'm
well, we were, yeah, but like we were sitting like on the couch together playing and having a good time. And like, somebody makes a good play, you push the other player, like try to, and that was a lot of fun. It really was. So
we've been doing, at my company Game Shark, we've been doing this for 20 years. And for 20 years, we hear kids come out of the trailer playing together in person, crushes playing with people online. I get online is convenient. I understand that. But in terms of social dynamics, all the time, it's like that was so much better than playing online. I'm like, yeah, we're wired to be together, do things together, play together. So games that I'm a huge fan of couch co-op. Games that give you
Mhm.
multiple people can have a controller and play together is just a hoot.
And what would you say to the parents who are like, you know what, I don't know how to play video games, or I don't know how to play these kind of video games. What would you say
Oh,
to encourage them to sit down and play with their kids?
oh, I'll tell you that's okay. So two things. One, that's a gift. You have an absolute gift because of phones, because of what's happening today. Kids don't know what it looks like for a mature, competent person they respect to struggle. Nobody shows it. You never see it online.
True. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it creates this distortion for them that they think they're the only one. They think they're the
Mhm.
only one that's having a hard time. They think they're the only one because everybody else looks perfect. And so if you don't know, one of the best things you could do is sit down and learn in front of your child. And I get that's a big ask. Adults hate to learn in front of other people. But what you're really doing is you're role modeling for your child what it looks like to be frustrated, what it looks like when you're confused, and how to deal with those difficult emotions. That's a foundation for such great emotional conversations. And what we're finding is emotional vocabulary is one of the leading indicators of mental health. If kids
Mhm.
only know they're anxious, well, there's a really great book that came out called How Emotions Are Formed by Lisa Feldman Barrett. It's the exact same physical sensations as nervous excitement. How you label your body sensation changes how you think about what actions are available to you. So sitting down and playing with your kids and actually talking about what you're feeling. And I know we're not always a big, especially for dudes, we're not always about feelings, but the truth is it's okay to talk about that and set an example and have that conversation. And what I have seen is amazing. And I hear these stories from parents all the time, the incredible compassion their children show towards
Mhm.
them,
Oh,
and
yeah.
to role model the comforting the parents have shown, which most parents find extreme pride in, is realizing their child wants to be helpful and useful like they are. And so I just see incredible bonding. Like if you have that feeling, it's not about winning and it's not about being good. It's about spending time together and what that relationship looks like when you're helping and supporting each other. That's the magic of playing together.
Yeah, man. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's fun to sit there and like, you know, you kind of struggle to play the game with your kid, and then they give you this tip, and it's like, oh, hey, let me show you, and then I'll do it, and you really get to see how your kid solves problems, how empathetic they can be, all of these, all of these things that you normally, wouldn't necessarily have while you're sitting in the car on your way to soccer practice, that sort of thing.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're having different conversations, you're having different interactions, and you get to see a different side of your kid.
Well, let me give you a clue is to like to make this even more productive. What I consider good games, the games we build, and I still think the great games are designed to, they're built around a psychology framework called self-determination theory. And it has three parts. And it is agency. Are you in control? And is this something you're doing voluntarily? The next one is mastery. Is it challenging? Man, video games, we are so good at the first two, right? It is all about it's interesting looking stuff. So it's going to draw you in and you get to do these cool choices. And then we adapt the game to your current level of skill till you level up and get better and better. But the third one is, and this we spoof, and this is a really important one for parents that are worried about their kids getting too compulsive gaming. Who does it benefit? What's the social
Mm,
good that comes out of what you're doing? What are you contributing to? And I got news. There are no space aliens. There's no princess to rescue. The world's not really at risk. So we spoof that stuff all the time. If you give you two or three, you've got a compelling game. And that's why for most people, there's a very tiny percentage might turn into professional gamers. But for most people, that all those hours spending video game aren't valuable because they don't benefit anybody but the player or the company that's monetizing it. So you want to line up these things, but you can take that model and go, like you just talked about problem solving. I had a friend that her son was into Minecraft and she wasn't a gamer. And I talked her into playing games. And she was like, her head was like, oh my God, the worlds he's creating are amazing. And I said,
mhm.
talk to him like it's his job. Talk to him like he's a project manager. What's hard about this for you? What are you learning? What skills do you have to overcome? Because it looks like this: face a hard problem, develop skill to overcome the problem, persist until you overcome. And that model is super transferable. If
Hmm.
you experience that with your child, you can use those game experiences in the real world. My cousin did this with her kid, who's a big gamer, and she's like, "You're gonna learn. You're gonna participate in track." He goes, "I don't know anything about track." She goes, "You didn't know anything about Minecraft when you started playing. Go out there and do it. Find something you like. Find something you can get good at, and let's see where it gets to." And it turned out he fell in love with the discus, and he's really good at it. And so
Cool.
she used his gaming experience to orient him to new experiences, going, "You are somebody that faces hard problems and develop skills to overcome them. Go." That's super transferable.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So Scott, let me ask you this: for the parents who are getting asked by their kids, "Hey, I want to play this game. Can I go download it or can I get it?" And you have no clue what they're talking about. How can I research this game to understand if it should fit into my family's values and it should come into my home?
So my quick fix is question one: is it free? That's
Mhm.
a huge red flag. Question two: does it require an always-on internet connection? You can pump that into ChatGPT. You can Google that, and if you find those two things, that's a giant red flag. Now, depending on your child's age, if they're young, for me, that's hard no. Like elementary school is like, nope, let's find something else for you to play. Players will play. Pokemon, get them Pokemon, right? Get them something else in that age, redirect their attention into an alternative. So it's not just no, but it's like, I don't think that's appropriate, but let's find something that is. What about this game appeal to you? And let's find one that where you're the customer and you can play it not on the internet. And if that's an option, then if they're older and you're like, well, they might be getting into something competitive, they might be getting into something, and you do want to encourage their interests. Here's the weird part, especially if they're girls. Girls that play video games are 3 times more likely to enroll in STEM degrees. People that play with technology want to learn. And so you might go, oh, well, let me look into that. And so that's where you might do a little bit deeper research to find out what about the communities and warnings, and then talk to your friends. What are they doing? Are they seeing any behavior issues with their kids? Can they put this game down? Those are the things I would look for right now in terms of trying to select a game. And then after a certain point, by 16, then it's really about ground rules. They're getting
Mhm.
into it. They know what they want. They know why they want it. And it would just have the conversation. Tell me about this game. What is it about appeals to you? Who are you going to be playing with? I just want to understand that you don't get sucked into something that is not going to lead in a good direction. But I have those 3 phases: elementary, middle, and high school. So it's a different answer at each one. Sorry. But when in doubt, if you have no time, is it free? Do I have to keep it online all the time? Be super careful with those choices.
I like that. I was researching whether or not my son was, I guess, mature enough to play Minecraft. This a bunch of years ago now, and I kind of went through a similar process. And it was funny because I would go and I would Google like, "Is Minecraft safe for kids?" And I would come up with articles about these random niche events that were bad about Minecraft, and that's all that it was. But when I sat and I talked to people about it, or I posted in a forum for dads, they were like, "Oh, yeah, go for it. I play with my kid all the time." And it was more like I went to the internet and I got one type of response that I kind of sort of was inputting into it. But then
Yep.
when I actually talked to people about it, it was like, "Oh no, it's great. You can do it offline. There's no voice chat, that sort of stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well then." And it was a family favorite for a long time. The three of us, me, my wife, and my son, would sit down and play. And of course, he knows what he's doing. We don't. And it was hilarious because we were learning in front of him what all to do. And it was funny because somebody would end up falling into a pit. He'd have to come save us, that sort of stuff. It was just a lot of fun in those days. So if you're listening to this and your kid is starting to get interested in Minecraft, I say go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of that game. And if you go to our website, gametruck.com, we always try to, we always show the games we make available. We do promote parental choice. So there's some games in there that are like, my personal recommendation is don't play them. But at the end of the day, we recognize a parent's right to choose what they believe is
Right.
best for their child. And so that's why my goal is, let me give you information. You make the best choice. So, but the games, like I said, those are my two. hard rules of thumb is I, I'm the customer. I'm the person I'm trying to make happy, and I can walk away and play this game. Like one of the games I've been playing lately and I've been enjoying a lot of it is No Man's Sky. Crazy developers have been building that forever. I can turn it off. I had to buy it on the Switch, and then I can turn off group play. So I'm playing by myself, and I can disconnect from the internet and keep playing. So it's in that no man's land where I could turn it on, and all of a sudden I'd be with people. So there are some things that'll be fuzzy, but I still have to buy the game. And I'm like, okay, it led me in the direction of that's a developer that is trying to entertain me, the user. And I just think that that's a really key element.
Right. And one of the things that you've expanded for me, Scott, is the intent of the developer. And that's going to stick with me from now on from this conversation. Is the intent to entertain, or is the intent to just keep attention? That
Well,
sort of
let
thing.
me
So
let me explain the hook algorithm so you know what you're looking
sure.
for. So part one is it starts with a notification. Pro tip: this is why every stinking thing you install on your phone, your iPad, wants to enable notifications. That's the cue. They want to cue you to a behavior. The second one is there's some action you're expected to take, something you're supposed to do. And what we've learned is there's this thing that happens below the level of conscious awareness. If you were to pick up a baseball bat or a club or like a golf club or something, before you even realize it, you start swinging it. Your body is trying to determine how this thing responds to your actions. And once you get it dialed in, you understand it. But the awareness of that happens later. Like you just start this really early. What they figured out how to do was hack that to where they keep you not releasing a lot of dopamine, a tiny, tiny amount. And dopamine in that quantity doesn't create satisfaction. It doesn't create pleasure. It creates craving.
Hmm.
And so what you're seeing, look, up until 2015, all the research, everything about addiction was about social isolation. John Hardy, everything I know about addiction is wrong. The Yak Panskip, the rat tickler, is like, Rat Park, no, it's all about social isolation. It's not really about drugs. And all of a sudden, you started seeing a generation of kids that are well socialized. They're in school. They're on sports teams. They got families that love them. These kids are not isolated, acting like addicts. What on earth is going on? And what they came up with this loop was trigger, so the cue, then the behavior, the variable reward, and the last piece is investment. Ever heard of skins?
Mm-hmm.
Customize it, personalize it. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're attaching your identity. And if you do that, you don't need the cue anymore. You self-trigger. You become like
Hmm.
a cigarette pack-a-day addict twitching and reaching for this thing because your brain hasn't figured it out. They never let your brain figure it out. You stay stuck in this loop of trying to figure this thing out. And
Hmm.
that's why kids can't put it down.
Right.
It's not entertainment.
No.
It generates lots of usage hours, lots
Sure.
and lots and lots of usage hours, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not entertainment.
No. Man, you've given me a lot to think about here. It's kind of reframing how I look at gaming, which I greatly appreciate. So as we wrap up here, I feel like our conversation has been pushing to this question: what on earth is going on over at Roblox?
Look, I don't know anybody there. I don't have any stake in that company. I'll be honest, I'm always worried about liability. It's a multi-billion-dollar operation, but they banned the one person who was publicly performing sting operations against sexual predators. How is that even conscionable?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you even do that? Why wouldn't you ratchet up your own efforts to purge that community of people that are violating? Like, this is one of those that alone, every parent should realize that Roblox voted with their wallet. They protected what is most important to them, their share price and their investors, not their users. And everything they have done since is eyewash. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
actually protect anybody from anything. It's designed to let parents, from what I can tell, in my perspective, what I've read, you can read other critics are saying the exact same things. It's a lot like the same things that Meta's put up. Oh, we have teen accounts now. yeah, what did you really change?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that matters. It's all stuff designed to make it look without threatening their core revenue model like they care. But when it really came to showing that, like, wow, you really could do some work to help the police, the FBI, and other people track down these creeps. Like, I feel bad. They just put a fence around the school, elementary school. It's been here for 50 years in my neighborhood. This year, I
Mm-hmm.
have had news. The creeps are coming into the school in your kid's pocket. They're not
Yeah.
waiting outside the fence anymore. And that really should have got a lot of people's attention about what's happening with there's no accountability. Nobody's holding these companies accountable. And I've never been an activist, but if there was anything that's got me motivated, it is watching kids be at risk for profit. Is just insane
Yeah.
to me. Absolutely
Yeah.
insane. So I tell parents all the time, get off Roblox. There's better choices. Pick a different game. Get off that platform. I get it's popular, and I get why people talk about it, but there are way better things you can be doing. And I would love to see the day where other platforms like Apple and Google Play stop promoting that so heavily. Is just say, nope, you guys are not looking out for kids. You're not protecting kids. You're not doing enough. We're not. They wouldn't do that with cigarettes. Why are we doing
Yeah.
it with Roblox?
Right. Very good point, man. Very good point. Scott, thank you so much for talking with me today. If people want to know more about you and all the information that you have to share, where can they find you online?
The simple one is like gametruck.com is, we help people play together. Not just kids, but adults too. Like that's our big jam. But if you want to know about me and my speaking and my blogs and more about anything I've talked about, scottnovis.com is you can find, my latest musings and writings. And I'm most active on LinkedIn, which means about once a week.
Yeah,
But you
man.
can find me at Scott Novis on LinkedIn.
Very cool. Yeah, it's funny on LinkedIn. I'll wait till I get about 10 notifications and then I'll log in and see what's going on over there. So glad to
Yeah.
know I'm not the only one.
It's that's how you can get a hold of me. And if anything I said resonated or you want to know more about it, I am absolutely happy to help. I do talk to school districts and PTAs and other groups to share this information. If you know a group that you think would benefit from it, I would love the opportunity to share that information with them.
Very good, man. Hey, I appreciate this discussion today. I thank you for reframing how I'm going to be looking at gaming and best of luck in the future, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for everything you're doing to help dads be better dads. I just think that's a phenomenal mission.